Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Journey Back from Domestic Violence. I have my friend Melanie here with me today, and she's going to tell us about her organization and her organization slash business, how they provide different resources for people with domestic violence. And we're just going to have this nice little dialogue. So, thanks for taking time out your busy day, Melanie, from doing this with me.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's talk about your organization. Tell us a lot what you have going on, what your organization as far as it relates to domestic violence and any other thing that you have going on.
Yeah, of course. I'm the owner and founder of Courageous Shift, and it is a domestic violence coaching and consulting company. So, what that means is I offer life coaching for survivors, basically to kind of help them navigate their new normal after leaving, which is a big deal. You come out of that situation of domestic violence, and you are trying to get your footing and figure out, what's next, what do I need
Yeah.
to do, just things like that. And then on the other side, I also do consulting with corporations to develop their domestic violence policies,
Okay.
get their employees on board in terms of for like empathy and different workshops as well too.
Okay.
So that started because I am a survivor. It's been 4 years, 4.5 years now.
Congratulations.
So yeah, but I'm also a child witness. So growing up, I grew up in an environment of domestic violence,
Okay.
and I didn't think it affected me until I was in my own situation. And so that was, it started with me just blogging about that experience and
Okay.
about motherhood as well, into this whole thing where I started to get hired to speak at different events, host different events, host workshops, and it just evolved into this whole new company, Courageous Shift. So yeah.
Thanks. So we got question. My first question, and I know you work with a lot of domestic violence victims, and you one. My first question is, why do you think so many victims go
Hmm.
back or stay with their abusers?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I get that question a lot because sometimes people who are not in it can't fathom why a person would stay in that situation. Why do they go back? But I tend to tell people to look at it the same way they look at any relationship. When, there's women who stay with men who cheat, there's men who stay
Right.
with women who cheat. It's not that automatically they started abusing. That's not the case. It's a buildup, right? So it's a
Right.
over time, just like how you fall in love with a person over time
Right.
through experiences and stuff like that. It's the same thing. So they build up that, oh, I care about this person and I love you. And sometimes a part of it is we don't understand what a healthy relationship is.
Got you.
You know, we don't know what that looks like. We're not really told that. A lot of times we are from environments that
That
just
didn't
breed
have that.
unhealthy relationships, right?
Right.
So I tend to tell people, look at it the same way you do any other relationship. You don't just immediately just fall in love with a person. It's over time. And once you do, you let some shit slide because you don't really know. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with women, with men and women who experience abuse. But especially women, it's like we tend to stay because or go back because we don't really know anything else. This person has ripped us of our mental capacity to
Right.
think for ourselves, our emotional, and more importantly, I think it's the hardest is our financial. A
Yeah.
lot of times we
Uh huh.
rely on them,
Mhm.
women rely on their abusers, right, in order to provide their daily living.
Different. Mhm.
That is hard,
That is
especially if they don't know what's on the other side. So
right.
my job is always to get them to think about the other side.
And is it hard to get them to see the other side because of the
Yeah,
financial and because it's sometimes it's comfortability
right.
because that's all they know at the time. So is it hard to get them to see the other side or is it easier
Yeah.
for them to see the other side?
No, it's definitely hard because
Mhm.
I'm competing with someone who told them no one will ever want you, no one cares about you like I care about you. I'll die for you. And we somehow think that that is a good thing when a person
Right.
says I'll die for you. It's like,
Yeah.
no,
That's
that
even
is
in a
not
normal
how that
relationship.
you're right. So it can be tricky, but I think it's giving them the tools, right? So what are the tools and the resources that they need in order to survive? Do they need something where they need their resumes done over, right?
Okay.
Do they need recommendations? Do they need financial support? You know, so it's figuring that stuff out,
What
what
all
their
it
needs
means.
are, and only they can tell us what their needs are. You know.
Now, do you see, as far this, and I'm learning myself that men are like men. We have a lot of men that's on domestic violence relationship than we even think. So, is it hard to get the men to see it? Is it hard as women's, to see the other side of leaving that
Right.
situation? So, is it hard for men as it is with women? Have you worked with men in that case?
So I have not worked with men in that
Okay.
case. However, I have spoken with men who did experience abuse.
Okay.
And it's the same thing. It's still tricky. It may not necessarily have that financial component,
Hmm.
of abuse, but it definitely has the emotional, it definitely has the mental, and it definitely has the physical too.
So it's
It
no
absolutely
difference.
has the physical as well too. Because if you think about it, we're
Uh-huh.
conditioned that men are, automatically aggressive sometimes, right?
Right.
So we have that, and you have a man that's bigger than a woman. It seems as if there's no way this woman could be abusing him, but that is not always the case.
So talking to a man, what's the difference? Is it any difference on men being abused than women?
Yeah, it's the shame around it, right? It's the shame.
Okay. Okay.
It's the
I
shame
heard that
around
a
it.
lot. It's a
It's the
shame.
idea that that men aren't supposed to be abused,
Okay.
or women don't abuse. So it's
Hmm.
the shame around that oftentimes get men to not say anything. They say that the statistic is 1 in 7, but it might even be smaller than that.
Right.
It's just men aren't coming forward.
Right. And I met this guy. I know this guy. He was my friend. And we was just talking about domestic violence. And he was like, he didn't leave the girl because he felt like in the hospital because she hit him in the head with a pipe. And yes, and he was like, he felt like the police was doing her so wrong, when they was telling him about domestic violence and pressing charges on her. He was like, well, they doing her wrong. And I was like, you just got hit in the head with a pipe. That's not.
Right.
And he was like, I said, well, how did you feel? He said, I never did anything because I felt like she was going through something. He made a lot of excuses on why. And then he was like, maybe a couple of months later, he was talking to the police and he said he realized he was in a domestic violence relationship. But he was like, why turn her in? Because they just was trying to lock her up for no apparent reason. Or it just was a small fight. And I was like, a small fight getting hit with a head with a pipe? That's not
Right.
small. But then he was like, well, it was the shame and, men not supposed to be like that. And I was like, wow. And I had no clue that
Yeah.
it was men that was going through that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the warning signs? Do
Yeah.
abusers show any warning signs?
Oh, there's a lot of warning signs. We don't realize it, right? So
Uh-huh.
some of the warning signs is like controlling behavior. And when I say controlling behavior, I'll give a prime example. So when I was with the gentleman that abused me, prior to us getting really serious, like I didn't have a car, right? So I didn't have a car, but I worked a good like 5 miles away. I normally would take the bus.
Okay.
Um, but he offered to drive me to work and pick me up.
Right.
I didn't think anything of it,
Right.
right? But once I stepped out of that, I realized like he was only doing that to keep track of me,
Right.
making sure that I got home, I was going to work and I was coming home,
Wow.
right? Just
Right.
little nuances like that, these controlling behaviors, moving people away from family, right? That's a big one.
Yeah, that's
Because I
huge.
didn't have a car and sometimes my family didn't want to pick me up, he wouldn't drive me because he's like, I don't want to go, or he doesn't want to go. But it's really because it's like, I don't want you around your family.
Wow. So that's
Let me isolate you.
right.
Isolation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, content, what am I thinking of? Like complimenting your style, the way you dress. Like, so if they don't want you to wear certain things, right? They may want you to change a certain way. And that happened to me too. Like I wore things that I normally did not wear. And even my friends was like, you don't seem as stylish as you used to be or
Right.
whatever kind of thing and stuff. So
Uh-huh.
little stuff, calling you names. It starts, name calling starts off really small, but in all actuality, In healthy relationships, there should be no name calling.
Right. Correct. That's correct.
So it's name calling. So those are like signs of that. Signs also on the person's end is like how, does their family have a history of domestic violence?
Okay.
Right? Because domestic violence is a learned behavior.
Okay. I
Giving
didn't know that.
empathy,
Mm-hmm.
it is a learned behavior.
Okay.
And so for me, the person that I was with, his father was abusive.
Oh, okay. So that's why he picked it up from.
It's a learned behavior, you know? And so asking those questions, Googling them. I don't care what anyone says. You better Google who this person is
Right.
to
I
figure
I
out.
do it myself. I'm like,
And trust your gut. Because here's the thing. Um, when I Googled him, his
hmm
arrest record came up.
wow.
But I didn't go with my gut. He explained it away.
Okay, like they always do. We would ask them things and they'll be like, "Oh, well, that just was a misunderstanding or
That's
something
right.
like that."
She was crazy. That was his thing. She was
Right.
crazy. But guess what? As things went on with us, now I was crazy too, right?
Because I'm in
Because
that
it was
situation with
different
you.
times like that.
hmm
Taking your credit card or your debit card, telling you not to work, don't worry about it, I got it. But or you're working so much, but they're taking all your money.
Wow. Isn't that a part of financial abuse, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Absolutely. So
So,
all of these little things that
mhm.
happen, and it starts off really small. It starts off maybe with name calling. It starts off with being offended if you disagree with them
Okay, okay. So,
and getting upset,
do you ever see in a domestic violence relation? I know it's always the small things. Is it normally is do we see big signs, or it's always those little signs?
It's a buildup. I would say it's a buildup. It
hmm
starts off small and it starts to progress here and there. You
Okay.
know, and so even with myself, like I saw the signs, but I didn't really name it. You know,
Couldn't put a name to it because you never experienced that, and you didn't see that on your end, domestic
right,
violence. So for people that don't see it on their end, they won't know it.
right. Well, I would say I saw the extreme of it, right? So meaning I saw the black eyes and the bruises. I saw the extreme of it, but I didn't see the buildup of what led
Okay,
to
I
it.
got you.
You know what I mean? And so I say like we have to recognize the signs. If something feels wrong, it usually is. And then if we don't know what a healthy argument is, like you can have an argument or disagreement with your partner, and it doesn't have to turn into this big blowout, anger, frustration, or physically. It
Right.
does not. And if we don't know what that is to argue fair, you know what I mean, and to
Mm,
argue with love or debate with
right.
love, we don't know what that is. That's what happens.
Okay, so
You
and I
know.
know you gave us some signs, but just to
Mhm.
recap, give us a few more signs in case ladies may miss those signs. Give us a
Yeah.
few more.
Yeah. One sign could also be like an ex girlfriend telling you that they're abusive. You know what I
Take
mean?
that.
Trust them in that.
hmm
When they say, also the other thing is y'all are in a relationship and you say, listen, I don't like the way you're treating me. I'm setting these boundaries, and they still constantly violate those boundaries.
Okay.
That is a sign that they don't respect them.
Wow. So you
You
have
know,
to be mindful.
it is okay to be in a relationship and have boundaries
Boundaries. Yes, it
and
is.
expectations. And I
I
think
think
a
it's
lot of times
important
I
to have
see
healthy
women.
boundaries. I think it's important to have boundaries, especially healthy
Absolutely.
boundaries.
And I think that a lot of times with women, we tend to like let those boundaries waver
Relax.
because we like the person, right? So
Right.
he's nice, he's taking care of us,
He's
he's
doing
great.
nice things.
But no, you set your boundaries and you stick with it.
Okay, cool. That's something that, I think as women's, we so nurturing. And sometimes that's just like with our kids. They may
Mm-hmm.
say, "Oh, well, mama, I'm sorry." And we kind of let that go when we should nip it in the
Mm-hmm.
bud too. So I guess it's part of us being nurturing.
Yeah.
Domestic violence.
But we not here to nurture men. Let me
No,
tell
we
you.
not. Like, it's just
No.
crazy. Men
We can
look
be
for that.
caring, we can be empathetic, we can be understanding, but we are not their mothers, and we should not be doing motherly shit.
Sure, exactly. Gotcha. As far as domestic violence, I know we have it. What age range do you see it in? Like, do you deal with youth or just strictly adults? Like, what age range have the most case and that you would say that you have dealt with?
So I generally work with adults.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mainly work with adults, and mainly I work with adults who are between the ages of like 28 and about, I think one woman might be about 42, maybe.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it ranges, but domestic violence starts really young.
Right.
Teen
Mm.
violence is a problem.
It is. It is. And
It's
I
a
think
problem.
the teen.
It's not a specialty, but it is a problem.
And you know what I was reading too, that teenagers don't realize, like, when their boyfriends ask them what's the passcode to your phone,
Right,
little stuff like that that they
right,
don't, that they really don't look at. And
right.
I know,
And that goes again back to one, us not understanding what healthy relationships are, and
mhm,
two, not being clear on our boundaries.
right, setting boundaries.
Yeah.
And I know we have the LGBT community.
Hmm.
With domestic violence, I know that the percentage like 43.8 in lesbian women and like 61 and bisexual. Have you dealt with any in the
Yeah.
LGBT? Okay. How is that?
Yeah.
Like, what's that look
It's a
like?
whole nother dynamic, right?
Okay.
Because then when they're trying to reach out for resources, it's hard to get a restraining order against a same sex person. In some states, you can't.
Really?
Yeah. In
Even
some
with
states,
domestic violence?
yes.
Wow.
So it's a whole nother layer to that. It's a whole nother layer to that.
What's the experience? I mean,
Hmm.
can you talk
So one
about
person
the
I know,
experience you had?
they struggled with it because it was two women. So it's like women fight, women bicker, right? That's what we're told. Like women cat fight all the time. But this is not cat fighting, this is abuse.
Right.
And so that was really hard seeking help because people didn't take it seriously.
Wow. I would think
Yeah.
they would take it serious because
No.
so what's like is it like just a long process just to get them out of that situation or they
It can be. I mean, with any situation, whether heterosexual or LGBTQ, it's
Mhm.
going to take, a lot because we have to rebuild the courage and the empowerment that we had. We have to
Okay.
rebuild it. We have to rebuild our self-esteem. We have to rebuild our love. We have to rebuild a self-love. We have to rebuild. We have to forgive ourselves.
Okay.
That is a big thing, like forgiving ourselves for putting ourselves into that
It's a
situation, quote
predicament.
unquote.
And
That's
some
not always
people,
the case.
no, it's not always the case. And some people that it takes them a long time to rebuild themselves, a very long time just to get out of that situation.
Absolutely.
So, is it possible for the abuser to change? Have you seen that?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
I do believe so. I think that they have to understand that it is a learned behavior. They have to take ownership of what they've done. They also have to go into counseling. There's a lot of programs for the victims slash
Mhm.
survivors, but there's very few for the batterers,
Okay.
the perpetrators. There's very few. There needs to be more. We can't just solely put the weight of change of domestic violence on the victims.
Right.
We have to also look at the people that are doing the abuse and say what resources do they need in order to understand that what they're doing is wrong
Right. And
and
where
why
did
it's
they
wrong.
learn this? And where did they learn this behavior
Right.
from?
Yep.
Because that's sometimes that's always the root of the problem too.
Yep.
Because of where they come from, they see, okay, that's cool, but that's really not cool at all
Right.
to abuse.
Absolutely.
So, as far as your organization, you say you provide workshops and different things for the domestic violence. Is it anything else that you provide for the victims?
Yeah. So mainly just the life coaching and the different workshops, but then also connecting them to resources that they may need.
Okay.
So if they need to get into a shelter, connecting them with someone that may be able to do that. Housing, there's some programs that have financial abuse, so financial support. So
Mm-hmm.
utilizing the resources that we have in the community. I'm based in Charlotte, but I really take clients from everywhere.
Okay.
And so that's really important. making sure, and just that encouragement sometimes. Like,
Okay.
I think talking to someone that's on the other side of it can be so helpful at times.
Okay.
It can be so helpful.
Okay. I know it is like
Hmm.
it's just a lot, I find that what's I know we have these different like financial abuse, mental, physical. Which are the worst? Is it is all of it bad, or is it just one of them in particular that's better than the other one? What you think?
Right. So that I can't answer that for everyone. That is
Okay.
really about the person who
Individual.
experienced it.
Okay.
Some may say that it was the physical abuse that was hard. Some may say it was the emotional abuse that was harder. Some may say it was the financial abuse. It really depends. For myself, it it took a lot of the it took a lot out of me because I was a really confident person.
Okay.
So the mental abuse, the emotional abuse was harder because even afterwards, and even sometimes now, like something will happen, or I'll be in a situation and I'll kind of hear because that person becomes your inner voice.
Okay. Okay.
That
Gotcha.
person becomes your inner voice. So you start to hear certain things in situations. So even being out of it, you can still hear certain things that you have to reprogram your brain to say,
Hmm.
no, that is not right. You have to constantly remind yourself that is not right. I am worthy. I love myself. All of these different things you constantly have to retool. But it wasn't the emotional abuse that made me leave, and it wasn't even the physical abuse. It was the financial abuse. Because for me, it was me saying, if I'm a struggle, I'm a struggle by myself. You know what I
Right.
mean? You know what I mean? Like
Gotcha.
I'm a struggle by
Right.
myself.
I'm gonna do this to
You know what I mean? And
Gotcha.
so absolutely it just depends on the person.
Okay. Gotcha. What about? I mean, I know. I experienced it, and mine wasn't big, but
Don't minimize.
right,
Don't
it wasn't
minimize.
big, but it happened. It's a part of my life.
Right.
But I didn't have build up. I didn't have a build up. Mine was like an instant. Like
Mm.
it happened to. It was shocking that because
Mm-hmm.
I did a report on domestic violence. I was looking like for the kicking out the bed or the mental or stuff like that. It didn't happen. Mine was like this incident that happened just like that. We
Mm.
was arguing and I was pinned against the door. So how do you help women in that case where it's no build up in that relationship
Mm-hmm.
and it
Yeah.
happened? But
So that's where, right.
go ahead.
So that's where it becomes a matter of, are you safe? Like, are you in imminent danger? Because if you are in imminent danger, we got to get you out of there. Everything else
Okay.
we got to figure out.
Hmm.
But if you are in imminent danger, something like that where it's so drastic and it's so instant,
Right.
right? We got to get you out of there immediately. Because
Right.
that means there's no like escalation. This person is going from, like maybe a regular argument to harm, physical
Right.
harm.
Physical harm.
That's extreme. But I will say the buildup could have been the mental stuff that you didn't recognize.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
The fact that the arguments weren't fair, quote unquote. They weren't
Right.
fair. They were very harsh and very extreme
Hmm.
and a lot of yelling. That's still a buildup.
Right. And
You
I
know?
know for me, it was like I knew that was what it was, and I was always told, men aren't supposed to put their hands on you. So even though in that situation I could have lost my mother, but I made that decision to say, "Hey, I'm gonna call the police, and you gotta go."
Right. Okay.
So we don't have women's like that.
Yeah.
So how do you get them to that point of saying, "Hey, you gotta do this," and you can't be that statistic. You gotta make that change for yourself. You
Yeah.
know, do you have workshops for them, like or just that
So one thing I
motivational?
will say is that we can't make them leave.
Right, that's one
They
thing.
have to want to leave on their own. They have to have reached their boiling point. I think that when we have empathy and compassion and patience
Okay.
and let them know that the resources are there, We are still supporting you. Whenever you're ready, we're ready. And that could mean leave a bag of clothes at my house. And when you're ready to go, we got a bag of clothes here. You
Right.
know, getting them a disposable phone so that if something happens, they can keep it somewhere. Having a code word or phrase that they text you to let them know that either A, they want you to call someone,
Okay.
or they want you to come and get them, or they want you to call the police.
Okay. So
You
you
know,
you build you
um,
develop code words and different things of that nature.
absolutely.
Just
And
okay.
I am a advocate for restorative justice. So
Okay.
I tend to, and I also believe in defunding the police. So I tend to not lean on calling the police unless it is absolutely necessary. However, we do need community resources and community organizations in order to support
Right.
that, you know. So I absolutely say like create a safety plan with the person. If someone in your life you know
Mhm.
is experiencing domestic violence, you know something's not right because we tend to know. My friends knew, but they didn't know. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they had an idea, whatever, right? Creating a safety plan with them.
Mhm.
But I would say the biggest thing is just having patience because it's going to take time.
Right. That's
You
what
know.
I think too. Patience is the main thing
Mm-hmm.
because of the beat down, and I think it's because of the mental thing, because
Mm-hmm.
some abuse start mentally, and they be done worked on their mind and build torn down so bad. So it's got to be that patience because everybody just don't have that heart. Like I had the heart, this is what I'm gonna do, and I
Right.
didn't back down on this because I felt like I didn't want to be that statistic girl. I wanted
Right.
to show other girls you ain't got to go through this. Like
Right.
you don't have to put up with this. You don't have to be that statistic. But
Right.
everybody don't have the confidence. So I think it's a lot of patience that we have to have, and also to show them that it's patience. We gonna be here whenever you pick that phone up.
That's right.
We're here.
That's
So
right.
I learned a lot, different things that I learned and I may not have experienced, but I do learn. I have a book that's coming out called Sister I Got Your Back. So as far as like, domestic violence women,
Mm-hmm.
how much can you stress that we have just us being supportive of our friends? Because that's what a lot of victims like that friend that said, I have your back no matter what's gonna happen.
Right.
I'm there. So how much of that can you stress of just seeing some victims, women's that's by themselves that don't have that support?
Yeah. So yeah, I totally understand that. And I think like for me, it was harder because I was away from my closest friends. So they were in New York, where I'm originally from, and I was in Charlotte. I think that I know that it probably would have been a different dynamic had I been in New York in that time.
Okay.
It probably
Okay.
wouldn't have happened if I was in New York, honestly. But
Right.
no. Um, but being here, I honestly had to reach out to a former colleague.
Wow.
And I reached out to her because I had knew her story.
Okay. Okay.
And so since I was and but the thing is like she came and she helped me, but I still went back. But I remember even though I went back, I still kept a lot of what she said to me with me,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And so it is a matter of building trust, getting the courage to trust someone. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be a friend. It can be a colleague. It can be,
Right.
someone that you know deep down is empathetic, has compassion, that you can confide in.
Right.
The other thing is utilize your local domestic violence hotline.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to them, let them know they can kind of sometimes talk you through the process, what it's going to be like,
Okay.
just talking to somebody,
Right.
you
Just
know?
just still keeping that open communication because
Absolutely.
sometimes the abusers shut that down and isolate you just to nobody, just you and the
Yep.
abuser. So it's
Yep.
that come open having that open communication.
Yep.
I know domestic violence month is actually what next month. So
Yeah.
let's talk about different things that you may have gone on
Mhm.
next month that like donations, if people could donate, if you're having a fundraiser kind of event kind of going on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, those different events that you have planned for next month. If you
Yeah.
have any.
Yeah, so I will be doing I will be taking on 3 people free life
Okay.
coaching survivors for uh I'm thinking maybe 3 to 6 sessions. I'm still figuring that out. But I they can definitely email me, and then I'm gonna make the selection. Uh Depending on how many people I get in, I might have to do a random selection
Okay.
along the process. We'll see. I'm doing that. I'm also considering hosting a few workshops around self love and forgiveness. And also, I'm working on this will probably be towards the end of the month, maybe, but working on doing a campaign where I want to create essential care kits for victims. So
Okay.
basically, the kit will be something that they can grab and go if they decide to leave.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So more details on all of that stuff will definitely be on my website, and that is courageousshift.com. COURAGEOUSSHIFT.com.
And make sure you make sure you send me a copy, and that way I can
Sure.
also post it up on my Give a Sister a Hug page and my other business page. Let's get
Yeah.
that
And they
information
can
out
follow
there.
me on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I am Melody CO, I am Melody Co, or Courageous Shift on all of the platforms.
So before we end the show,
Yeah.
what are some of the last what would you like ladies and men that's
Yeah.
victims of domestic violence to know, and
Yeah.
that you would like them to take and
Right.
just think about things?
Yeah. So I want them to know that everything that the abuser said is a lie. Everything that they said was a lie. Do not believe the hype. You're absolutely capable. You're resourceful. You're creative. You are empowered. It's just getting that support. And that is not the person. You can't change them. They have to want to change themselves. Set boundaries and stick with it. And if you need help, please reach out to someone, anyone. Reach out to me and I'll find a connection for you. That's not a problem.
Right, and always make sure that use the domestic violence 1-800 number too.
Yes,
So that's a big
absolutely.
thing too. So I want to say thank you for
Thank you.
doing the journey back from domestic violence podcast and providing all those good information, because everybody don't know. So
Yeah.
it's good to educate, even before someone get to that point. So it's
Yeah,
good to
absolutely.
educate. So I'm so thankful to have you taking time out of your busy day. I know it can be busy. So I just want to say thank you, and make sure you leave everybody, you left the Instagram and everything, that way they can get in contact with you, and just make sure that I have flyers or whatever.
Yeah.
I have no problem with posting, because we all have to support one another, and we
Yes.
all this just is something that we need to all educate everybody, no matter from the little ones to the big ones,
Yep.
because they have no age range. So thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Erica.
No problem.